Motivation is such a simple yet nebulous thing. It appears to be a make or break for school, work, hobbies, relationships, projects, and more, yet it simply comes and goes. It's like there's no rhyme or reason, not a flash in the pan like inspiration, but something requiring an overarching purpose. The thing that keeps you going in spite of it all. Robert Henri once said, "The object isn't to make art, it's to be in that wonderful state, which makes art inevitable." Motivation is some sort of mindset that creates an unstoppable force for the creative part of your brain, the drive to follow through on an idea as far as it will take you. Motivation is specifically a desire on behalf of a goal. Without a particular direction or goal, motivation can't spark. It's a striving towards discovering your meaning, purpose, or ideal life. YouTubers in particular are some of the most creative people on the planet, and they all had some sort of motivation to keep them going. This motivation helps push through long recordings, editing sessions, or toiling over analytics to ensure you're doing everything to optimize SEO or whatever. Motivation is important to YouTubers because for nearly everyone, this is their grand dream, especially nowadays. But where does this grand dream motivation come from? There are many types of motivation and motivators, but as far as the general pool of YouTubers go, there's what I like to call the Creator F5. 5 Fs, 5 motivations. The most obvious motivation you may have heard about any job is the ability to obtain money. It's needed for basic necessities, and naturally as some people treat YouTube at least as a side hustle, money is key. For the most part though, it's like starting a project and making a bad decision from step one. Now to preface, creators who do no work such as video reposting can easily be motivated by money. But the motivation doesn't need to take them that far, all they're doing is spamming videos and pretending they made them. But evidence shows money hardly ever does motivate us. And not only does it not push us to work harder, but it can actually be more of a demotivator than anything. Once our basic needs are covered, our motivation for money becomes uncertain if not doubtful. So what about the people who claim to be motivated by fortune on YouTube? To my surprise, these individuals are hard to come by, or maybe I'm just in the right circles. The one creator that does stick out to me though is Jay Schlatt. He's claimed many times that he currently only does YouTube for the money, and he gives a particular reason for it. Especially in his Anthony Padilla interview, he claimed to seek focusing on his main channel because it made him more money, and this motivating feature is so that he can eventually retire, saying he'll be fulfilled then because he can do whatever he wants. Besides covering my bases, acknowledging it could just be another part of his character, the concept isn't impossible for a YouTuber to have. We all went through high school or an equivalent to prepare us for the job market or higher education, and generally we all toil in different ways, sacrifice our time and mental capacity for the hope of a better future. But I don't think this really is Jay Schlatt's true main motivation. To be blunt, if it was, why would he spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to make a Christmas album, knowing full well beforehand that it would lose him more money than it cost? Why would he spend his time supporting his group channel early on, knowing it could be a while before it was profitable? Why make a COD commentary advice column channel that truly makes nothing? The individual motivations for these questions and more could even go into their own categories. All this to say, I suspect the few YouTubers who claim to only do it for the money at least have more prominent motivations than they're letting on. In this case, it's worth bringing up second channels, which I'll get to more in another video. Creators may try to sell out a bit on their most profitable channel or channels to contribute to a main project or any side projects that are creatively fulfilling. As much as Jay Schlatt posts reactions on his main or Q&As on his alt to recover money from the Christmas album, for example, Mr. Beast, Pyrocynical, and others may use React, gaming, or commentary channels to earn money for their main channel projects. It's hard to say how this web of motivation works, but it may at least appear that earning money on the side with the high production cost main project you're more passionate in is how a modern YouTuber may operate. But regardless, that doesn't make money their main motivation. The desire on behalf of a goal is to achieve greatness, not just to earn wealth for retirement. Some YouTubers develop the motivational goal of fame from the start, hoping to be a big YouTuber one day like the ones they watched growing up. Though a fair motivator, fame is somewhat of a superficial metric to set a goal by. It's not inherently evil, but it likely won't take you as far as motivations to come due to the slow progression of obtaining it. The best way to break it down in terms of the creator space is recognition and peer metrics. Fame in the first concept is the idea of being popular, noticed, recognized. becoming someone out of a community, or even a someone on the platform as a whole in the case of YouTube. That recognition side of the motivation isn't always mentioned, but it can help creators flourish out of certain communities. The aim of being recognized by peers, fans, etc. usually starts in a niche where that's an obtainable end goal. If you start out in the very YouTube-saturated Fortnite community and want to make a name for yourself, this recognition motivator could push you to innovate and make something very different. 100 Drops and Before You Buy, for example, were unique series that allowed Loot the Notable and Pizzo to be put on the map, even if they weren't trying to do it for name recognition. Early motivation for creators may not aim for recognition by random viewers, but by those they care about and to impress. Showing off your popularity online to friends or family can have some satisfaction. Metrics is the other piece of the puzzle with a fame motivator, and it's a doozy. Most YouTubers are affected by analytics on videos, from the up or down view counts to the out of 10 ranking system that has creators shaking in their boots. These metrics going up means not only more money and financial freedom, but an increase in your popularity. More comments, more likes, and every dopamine-inducing number increasing can be a trip. The number one most popular metric shared by audiences and creators is the number of subscribers. Subscriber counts have mattered since the beginning of YouTube. Who has the most? When were they overtaken? Who was left in the dust? A lot can be said about the number of subscribers, but in terms of fame, it's how big a deal your channel is, a viewer's direct link to your popularity. In fact, it's so important that some small YouTubers were able to hide their subscriber counts and hope that their content would be judged without the popularity prejudice that it may be low quality. In a lot of cases, their videos simply may not have been found by the right audience yet. Metrics actually motivating creators is tricky. It's not always what starts the fire to make videos, but once you're noticing the data rise and rise, it can become an addiction. Jishlak quips, I think YouTubers start pivoting into content they find more meaningful after the numbers start going down. Like they have a whole change of, oh, it was all about the meaning anyways, I just want to do stuff that fulfills me. And then they realize maybe it was just the arrows that fulfilled me the whole time. Though it's a grim angle, fulfillment and motivation being tied to metrics is very heavily ingrained in YouTubers' psyche after so long. Whether creators would like to accept it or not, it's a tether. It's especially a notable form of motivation that, like money, may push you forward, but the process of what you're doing may not be tied to happiness. While the fame category may aim to please an audience on behalf of seeking better metrics, some people are just motivated by actually pleasing the audience with investment in the reaction. While fame is the superficial metrics motivation, fans is the community-driven one. Especially early on, it can be incredibly motivating to see comments come through on something you made. Comments that are candy, like great video or keep it up, are lovely, but a more thoughtful one attuned to the topic of the video can hit hard. The latter is what keeps creators going in the category of fans. To get even more interaction, one reason creators set up Discord servers is not only to establish a community of like-minded interests who can communicate on those matters, but the YouTubers may selfishly want to partake in those discussions as well. When researching YouTubers' motivations for making videos, one of the most prominent through lines at the base of it all was a sense of community. PewDiePie, Mark, Jack, DanTDM, and even more names that I could go on about all had a key motivator in their fans. Some said they were making content to amuse their audience, some to build a community around a common interest, and others getting the courage to keep going by consistent fans who wanted to see the creator flourish. As a motivation, relying on fans alone could get taxing. Becoming too creatively dependent on what an audience wants may lead you down a path I'll discuss later. But wholesale, interacting with your community is not only helpful, but crucial, at least somewhere along the process. In a non-fiction titled The Creative Act, Ruben states, when playing music for someone else, we hear it differently than when we listen to it ourselves. It's as if borrowing a second set of ears. We're not necessarily looking for an outside perspective. We're more interested in widening our own. He mentions in the chapter that we may understand our work from a new angle upon getting others to experience it. Not only asking questions we didn't used to about our work, but also getting insight into the people who've experienced what we've made. I interpret this in the creator space as we can better create our own content when we know our audience, and we don't have to heed to them, but there's a lot to learn. This being said, creating a community may be the most important part of a YouTube channel. You're uploading to an audience, so understanding who enjoys what you do, those that really crave it, those who appreciate your personality, letting them be a part of the process can take you far. The perfect example is streamers with live chats. Early on, fostering a community in streaming may seem impossible, but streaming regularly could bolster a few viewers that keep coming back, and then those viewers become a part of the content with interactions and suggestions. Even creators like Hassan, one of the largest streamers on the largest live streaming platform, interacts with chatters. It's a huge aspect of the community dynamic there, even responding to completely random people if it serves worthwhile in the topic at hand. There's a major discussion to be had about fans that deserves its own video, but as it stands with motivation, it's simply a really key element of encouragement on YouTube compared to almost all other forms of art or entertainment. Feats are typically something you see a YouTuber do after eons of monotony. They may rise doing something new or game-changing, only to get stuck in a rut, motivated only barely by increasing metrics. Imagine suddenly, after all this time, after this gutter you've been laying in, an idea sparks. Inspiration strikes. This is your ticket out of the wasteland, at least temporarily. YouTubers have a wide range of what's considered feats, but it's at least worth noting that it truly is distinct from the previous categories. It's definitely not for fame or fortune. A sense of accomplishment transcends that. It may be for the fans, but that's only a byproduct of the release of something you're truly proud of. And though the project may be fun to do, even breaking out of your comfort zone to try a new creative process, feats are characteristically about making something great, something to be proud of. Fun may not always take you to those heights alone. It's a common joke that once YouTubers get to a certain level they start making music, but this isn't the only case of feats. Acting, directing, writing a book, or making a game are some examples of feats that even small YouTubers will aim for. Creators can see feats in the YouTube content they make too, not just seeking something outside. Something as straightforward as Tommy Innit's A Tribute to Dream SMP is a break in his normal content to make a meaningful and impressive video, honoring his community and friends, including the one who inspired the project. For some, feats motivate every video they upload to YouTube. The feat itself could be the volume of uploads, like feeling accomplished from posting for a year straight. For others, feats only pop up in their head when the universe deems it necessary. In other times, they can enjoy making stuff for fun. Fun as a motivator makes perfect sense right off the bat. Perhaps learning the editing process is fun, the original recording with a friend, posting a video and being giddy at what the fans will say. Even patiently waiting for the metrics to go up is part of it. Fun could just have easily been a lurking sub-motivator for everything I've mentioned. The aha moment in a feed, the grin you can't help reading a comment, the excitement of reaching a subscriber milestone, and maybe what you can do with the financial freedom Schlatt reference after getting your YouTuber fortune. Fun is when you create something because that desire by goal is to have a quick laugh sharing a skit you made with a friend, or tooling around with the creative freedom the editing process provides. Other motivators have key moments where you may get the next re-up. With feats or fans, finally releasing something could be the big moment. For medium-sized YouTubers seeking fortune, maybe it's payday. But for whatever you create, if fun motivates you, it's possible the entire process, from recording to following the aftermath of release, it can all feel like play. There's an incredibly popular quote by Mark Anthony always passed around when I was younger. If you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. A more pessimistic view on this concept as I was growing up noted that a dream job is still a job. But the meaning behind the latter isn't truly that sinister. It only claims that despite this job being your life's goal, you still have to put in the time and effort to nourish it. Once you reach a dream job, the hard part isn't over. It's just that now, perhaps you can enjoy the hard part. But not all YouTubers enjoy the full process. In fact, it's probably split up intensely. I could harp on about each phase of creation, but content on YouTube has so many different variables involved. Some recordings last half an hour with a 50-hour editing process, while others put a lot of time into making sure the original recording sounds or is shot right, with simple editing. The most common example of a fun split is with live streamers. The final product for a lot of viewers on platforms like Twitch is simply the recording itself, but it's enjoyed and acceptable. Beautifully wild things can take place while live. But for whatever reason a creator may have, promotion for the stream, building up the YouTube channel, etc., there's a need to highlight those streams in some way. Some streamers are lucky as they grow fast enough to a point where they require a highlights channel but already have the money and audience to justify paying someone else to do it. Some creators aren't so lucky. Though their stream grew from some audience, a lot of SMP Live members for example, they became a popular enough streamer to support themselves, but not enough to relieve their highlight editing duties onto another person, thus doing it all themselves. This may burden the time and creativity that could be put into streams, and often it's not a positively associated activity for streamers. On the other hand, the streams are a blast, interacting with chat, playing their favorite games, or just being goofy. Even if the stream highlights aren't peak YouTube content, creators can still find the motivation of Feats to push them through the edit. Not only appreciating that they can expand their audience through putting out slimmed videos, but also starting from a VOD that may be at its best slop, and transforming it into a fun experience for the viewer. Being pushed to make content by fun is often the most light and enjoyable of any motivation, quite literally the joy of creation. Well, from the start, obviously getting stagnant or decreasing view counts can be demotivating, especially with metrics being an extremely popular motivation. A personal favorite, the subscriber plateau or dip, when your audience isn't growing, or worse, you pivoted and your audience didn't want to follow that journey, thus unsubscribing. Nick DiGiovanni initially had this problem. He was a part of a TV show, and his first video was a direct reference to the show, bringing in that audience. Though the videos that followed were tangential to his original, the cooking niche, most of his audience quickly fell off wanting more from that show. Nick quit YouTube, and without COVID coming through to shake things up, that initial demotivation would have likely pushed him off permanently. It's worth mentioning that, though rare, metrics dropping in a situation may not be the key demotivation. In Empleman's early days, YouTube was motivated by fun, a break from the normal world's flow. Once his channel became larger, crossing 100,000 subscribers and beyond with videos like Frying Nemo becoming more and more impressive, his audience craved even greater projects at an increasingly quicker rate of release. Eventually, some fans would lash out and insult newer, more short-form projects, though Emp claims it was when he began to work on projects less like the grind of the real world. This all came to a head in a video called We Need to Talk, in which Emp lashed out back at his fans, claiming that those in his audience thinking they can somehow command his content can just unsubscribe. A loyal audience can begin to feel like a prison. Of Emp's hot-headed moments over the years, this was certainly the most detrimental to his channel stats, as he did end up losing at least tens of thousands of fans. Usually subscribers will leave in max exodus from a sharp content change or drama situation, or even gradually as a channel starts to decay in quality or upload frequency. Emp's drop-off was initially gradual from each new upload, but once this call to action to unsubscribe was put into place, it opened up the floodgates. It's quite clear again that this subscriber change wasn't demotivating. Sure, it would hurt to see just how many of his ex-fans didn't care about the direction he was taking, but maybe this instance actually spurred motivation. As noted, these ex-fans were giving Emp a headache, turning something fun into something to be constantly compared and analyzed. It could be speculated that the awful fan situation could have been demotivating, since the reaction he once sought betrayed him. But it's certain that once the fat was cut and the dust settled, his motivation for content and audience to follow began coming back in troves. After all, his motivation at its core was just having fun. I bring up Emp's story to examine a situation where motivations and demotivations are a bit complex, maybe nuanced. He liked his audience, but felt chained to them with nowhere to go. He liked that big sub number, but had to temporarily sacrifice it to finally move on. Other cases may be more cut and dry. For a YouTuber, you could take any of the 5 motivations I mentioned and propose a failure of the goal. You couldn't complete the project, you've been working on it a while and it hasn't made any money, and so on. But the truth is that where one motivation is deafened, another joins the track. While the metrics and fans motivator for Emp were put on hold in that moment, he shortly started a road of feats that would bring him to success, doing what he loved. I grew up getting spurts of motivation through inspiration and new ideas, but it had a habit of draining, especially when subscriber growth plateaued on my old channel. I came across specifically these motivational Mr. Beast videos, and they explored entirely the motivation of fame and fortune, showing big houses, subscriber numbers, YouTube play buttons, and it got me thinking about what my own desires on behalf of a goal were in retrospect. Well, they, like many creators I'm sure, shifted. Back when I had next to nothing, my subscribers were purely family, friends, and alt accounts, I came across an opportunity to become what I considered a big YouTuber. There was this copycat game to the one I'd been playing for the past couple years, and it was going to be big. Just like the YouTubers I'd watched before, I now had the chance to make it big by getting the jump on a new game, now motivated by fame. Needless to say, as an 11-year-old I wasn't very skilled, and it didn't totally pan out. Fast forward to 3 years later, I'd been a part of the community for a while, but just got an itch. Ideas, gaps to fill this YouTube niche, I was to a breaking point. I was in a phase of school that required some time and attention, but then COVID hit and my free time exploded. I started experimenting with my ideas, and some worked out better than others, But after just a few months of uploading, I was able to get somewhat of a status that my 11-year-old self would have wanted in a community like this. Except it wasn't just built on the motivation of fame, or the fun that I had experimenting with ideas, but now the fans. Building an audience with commentary-style content meant I was getting people who had something to say about my take or a comment in the situation. And interacting with them, or at least seeing their comment on what I added, lit the fire in me greatly. That's what kept me creating. Then some dark times hit. I was demotivated by growth plateauing, so I simply stopped posting. I was still getting used to the up and downs of bipolar, and when I went sky high, my creative focus was always YouTube. I couldn't even tell you what your motivation is while you're manic. It's like a superpower. Everything is in high quality, everything is possible, every idea you have is gold. But these week-long mania sessions on my channel never went well. It was only consistent for a week. They were creative but not pleasing to my fans, and I would have to private videos when I went off the deep end. I suffered deep embarrassment and each depressing fallout. Ever since the last manic state with YouTube on the brain, I quit, thinking I'd ever only get that unlimited motivation stamina bar whenever my bipolar wanted to say hi. Nowadays, I truly believe I mostly act in feats. Not to say my videos are incredible. I mean that other than having fun in the writing and research process, the most motivating factor is seeing that video complete at the very end. A long time coming stream of ideas that somehow turn into something I could be satisfied by. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fans as well. Though Feats took me through the months-long process of figuring out what I was going to do with this channel, now seeing comments and support, I feel completely supercharged, like I'm doing everything fresh for the first time. Every creator has multiple motivations, I'm sure of it, but they sure can change like the seasons. Motivation is the back-burning flame of creativity. It's distributed across many factors, the courage to keep going and the desire to pursue your goal, your dream. The best piece of advice I've ever heard is to simply give up. Take all the time you've been putting towards that goal, or hope that you'll do something great with it, and throw it away. The end goal of your pursuit is likely crowded with many talented people who especially want it more than you, so it's simply more efficient to cut your losses. Put your time towards something guaranteed in life. Forget your dream. Now, admittedly, breaking the illusion will kill the advice, but it's pertinent to this ending. Motivation requires a passionate reason for pursuing your dream, whether it's a dire need for wealth or a childlike taste for fun. Without motivation, you won't be able to complete those goals, take each consecutive step towards making something worthwhile. Many of your steps towards success will be demotivating. An offhand comment on your art that rubbed you the wrong way, a devastating 10 out of 10 video after 5, 10, 100 hours of work. The most important people in your life no longer supporting you. In spite of everything, if the motivation still stays, you truly can't be stopped. If a random person on the internet tells you to quit, that it's really not likely you'll make it, and you listen, you didn't have what it took to begin with. Winston Churchill said that courage is going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. Someone like me telling an audience to give up on your dream will statistically save everyone a lot of time. Those who didn't have the motivation or were forcing it will quit. And those who truly cared about their dream with rich passion will push through such a silly notion. So my call to action is again nothing more than for you to just give up, or find the courage to be motivated. Thank you all for your reception on my first 2 videos. I wasn't sure if the algorithm was going to see them until my next few uploads, but alas! Feel free to subscribe if you like the content, because I'll be serving more up every chance I get. On the topic of this video, I researched a bunch of Draw My Lifes, and wow, do these YouTubers share the canon event of having a major medical scare. Like, that was funnily enough the common thread. Adios!